and out in case the agent comes to my table. So if you see me pop
Yeah.
out, that's why. And I'll
All
be back.
right. No worries. All right. So there we go. Okay. So helping as a new agent, helping buyers. That's pretty much what this will be about, but hopefully everyone can take a few things from it or provide your feedback. I am going to share my screen. All right. So here we go. So this is how Mike and I do it. So some of it is necessary. Some of it's just our process. But basically helping buyers, especially if it's their first time buying, really, really laying out kind of expectations, what you can expect. Hey, Chelsea. How are
Hey,
you?
good. How are you guys?
Good. Nice to see you.
Welcome to the party.
Yeah. So today, Chelsea, we're just talking about helping buyers, and I just opened this document, so perfect timing.
New buyers specifically.
New agents helping buyers, new or not new, but I guess if they are new though, like definitely focusing on, expectations and kind of what to expect. But honestly, we have helped people like even like Dakota and, like that have bought before. And they just needed a complete refresher on the process. Because, if they worked with someone in the past that kind of just threw them into the process, and, we're speaking from experience, sometimes agents do that. Like they know what to expect. So they kind of just bring their clients along and aren't like kind of laying out the roadmap for them as you go. And so if they had an experience like that, then like it's our job to really just like slow it down, explain the process, explain what to expect and set expectations. And so if we do it that way, like we have way happier clients at the end of the transaction, and they feel like they were involved in every step. And so, does that make sense?
Yeah. So,
yeah.
and there's a couple things with that, like, we're working with some clients right now that own a home. And just because they own a home, that, we can't assume that they know the process.
Yeah.
So for these particular clients, they bought their house from their parents years ago. They actually never went through the real process of buying a home with inspections and appraisals and all of the things, right? So, so you can't assume those things. So you got to kind of ask them, and, they don't know what they don't know. So, you are that resource for them. So, just make sure like you're explaining it, at the lowest level possible, and they'll let you know, like, hey, like I understand that piece, then you can kind of move on. So
yeah. And like even us as agents, like, I've been doing it 3 years, and this happens to me all the time. Like I forget steps. I have to go back and remember and review things, and you know what I mean? So imagine like a, home buyer, like it's already overwhelming. Like they're going to get told something by you, and you're going to probably have to repeat it 5 times, So, so this just really helps clear it up and like helps them not have to ask you, 5 times. But pretty much like at the beginning, of course, like in Oregon, so, and Chelsea, and Brandon, I'm interested in your states, but handing them an initial agency disclosure pamphlet so that you can clearly let them know your responsibilities as an agent. And then also, what's the other purpose? It's to ensure that they aren't working with someone else, and so that you can show that you in good faith, was thought that they weren't working with another agent. I guess it does like cover a few different.
And it's just legally you have to.
Yeah.
So there's that. If anything else, like
that's in Oregon. Is it the same in California and Tennessee?
Yeah, if we're in California, as soon as possible, you want to give out those disclosure statements, and so it's pretty lawful. You have to pass those out.
Yeah. Okay.
We have some pretty similar. It's like almost like a little book of how to buy a house, but that's our disclosure.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And like it would, Brian, the Oregon managing broker, he suggests that we get initials, whether in person or sending it out through DigiSign. Little initials there's no signature block, so just having them mark that they read it. But as long as you can prove that you provided it to them and they got it, you know, so whether it's an email that they replied to or whatever, like as long as you can prove, if you're in court, you know, if you could prove that you gave it to them and they did get it, then you're good. So
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of agents that, like, you know, if they're forgetful or whatever, they'll just attach it to every email they send out, just so they can say it. It's on every email sent out. Like, it's obvious that they get it because I send it every time. So
yeah.
if you want to, you know, be overkill about it.
Yeah. And so then, of course, the next thing, and you see all the memes and the TikToks and all the funny videos about, you know, not showing clients' homes before they're pre-approved. There are exceptions to that, and you'll use your discretion, you know, if it's like your mom that wants to see something and whatever, like, okay, like it's at your risk of wasting your time, but use your best discretion. But the best thing to do is ensure that they're pre-approved. So typically if they, you know, if you send them, you know, some lenders, if they wanted you to do that and they pick one out, an intro email to that lender is great. If they already have a lender, get the lender's contact info and connect with them before showing them anything. Because then you can start that communication and actually know that they are truly pre-approved. Because a lot of people, it's really sad, the amount of people that say they're pre-approved and they actually are not. They just think they will be. And it can be a good thing. Sometimes they're looking for a $200,000 house and you're like, there's nothing. And it's because they wanted their payment at a certain amount. And then they find out like, wow, I'm actually pre-approved for a $400,000 house because I can afford that every month. That's happened to us plenty of times. So,
Or right now, you know, rates going up. Like, wow, I'm pre-approved for a $10 house. Or yeah, like it's good to have them check in with their
Hopefully
lender, especially if rates are changing frequently, right? Just to make
Yeah.
sure you're shopping in the right range.
yeah. Yeah. So, if at any time, just speak up and talk. You know, this is kind of, it's such an important process. And if you ask me, I'll send you over this document, to, you know, review. But it's so necessary to be familiar with, especially as a newer agent, like walking in to talk to a buyer. So, so the best thing to do is then, you know, once they're pre-approved, like, yes, you know, upon that, if you're in a hurry to go look at a house, like, yeah, go show them the house. But in a perfect world, you would meet with them face to face is best, but we've had appointments over Zoom. And let them see you, let them look in your eyes, let them, you know, trust you, learn how to trust you, if you don't know them already, and you just kind of go over the home buying process. So, you know, you are, oh, by the way, yeah, I wrote on here, safety precautions. So if you're female, you know, like for instance, I had a listing appointment last week, ended up getting postponed, but Sean here on this call, like, so I told the guy, I was like, I've never met you, so I will be bringing a team member with me to your house. And if they don't agree to that, then you don't want them as a client, obviously, because you don't want to die. But I called Sean and I'm like, hey, I need you at this listing appointment with me. And he was like, cool. So definitely be doing that. And if they can't respect that, then bye. So anyways, so things to ask them, you know, this is a big deal. Like, what's their preferred method of communication? Like, you want to adapt to that if you can. And you know, if you everyone here is EXP. Okay, cool. So EXP has the marketing center. You'll see, you know, on this sheet a few times. So there's a really great buyer questionnaire on there you can print out, and it asks for things that maybe you haven't even thought about. So fill that out just for your records, and then
And things maybe your clients haven't even thought about either. That kind of makes them like think outside of where they were at before. You know, a lot of people are coming just from an apartment or something and they don't know, like, didn't consider certain things, right? So it's good for everybody.
Yeah. And, you know, also just be like, what ones are deal breakers? What ones are, you know, you could have some wiggle room on. So the marketing center also has a great home buying roadmap. So it's really easy to follow. You print one out for them to keep. And usually, you know, on that, I'll skip number 2. I'll write out like kind of what they can expect to pay out of pocket during the transaction. This is Salem, Oregon numbers. So just find out, you know, where you're at. But so we'll tell them, you know, it's going to be about $325 to $500 for your home inspection. If you know, we recommend these other things, but it's obviously your choice. But $100 to $150 for sewer, $100 to $150 for radon. So we kind of write out worst case scenario inspection like expectations. And a lot of times we can get it for less. Like a lot of times people offer a military discount if they're military, like things like that. And then, because like I've had, friends, we've had it happen to us to where the agent did not tell us what to expect to have cash in our pocket. And nothing sucks worse than finding your dream home and, you're kind of paycheck to paycheck, maybe in your situation or whatever. And then all of a sudden you got to come up with $500 cash and you didn't know about it. It automatically, even if it's not the agent's fault, like it automatically, you lose trust. And that makes it harder for when there are road bumps that are outside of your control. It's going to make those things seem a lot worse than they are. So, right. And then set expectations for the market. It's really tricky right now. So thankfully for buyers, it's better, except the interest rate. So just have, a lender that you trust so that you can answer or have the lender answer those questions. But yeah, set the expectation for the market because nothing, so, especially for listings right now, that's another expectation conversation, but you just want them, and I always suggest this, kind of give them worst case scenario. Just be like, listen, everything in my control, we're going to be doing all that we can to make this an amazing experience for you. But I do need to tell you, I'm just reading a chat. Oh yeah, buyer documents. Oh yeah. So Kayla just gave us the link to access those documents. Anyways, but yeah, so give them, worst case scenario, this could happen. Things out of our control might happen. Here's what could happen. This is what, scenario B, this is probably what will happen. This is on average what happens. Here's what you can expect. And then give them best case scenario. So we use that method in pretty much everything, buyer, seller, any stage of the negotiation. And we usually try to exceed and have, the third one happen. But that way, if something outside of our control happens at all, which does happen, they have already been kind of prepared for that. Like, oh, well, they did say that could happen, so we still trust them. Nothing it'd suck if we're like, yeah, this is what we're going to try to do. And then it doesn't happen outside of your control. And then they're disappointed in you and they're like, oh, they don't know what they're doing. So setting expectations is just kind of what real estate agents do. Like no matter what's happening, that's what we have to do. Otherwise, we're going to disappoint our clients. So sorry that I'm talking really fast because it's already 2:15 and I probably should not have tackled this in half an hour. But like I said, just ask me for the document and I'll send it over to you. So then the marketing materials that you can have for this meeting is the buyer presentation, buyer questionnaire, and the home buying roadmap. I already said that. All right. So when you go to show the homes, kind of one of the most important things to start with is to these two things. Read the private / agent only remarks. They might say something like, contact my admin for an appointment. They might say something like, review this document before showing. Those things are very important because if you're going to want to offer on the home, if you didn't read the remarks they gave, so it does happen that the listing agent will get pissed off if you didn't read it and you called them instead of the admin they asked you to. If you already have a listing agent pissed off at you, or thinking that you don't know how to read private remarks,
Like you want to look confident.
that might impact their advice to their client. They totally have every right to say, this is the offer that came in. I just, but the agent on there, didn't even read the instructions I put out there. So that was kind of, that kind of sucks, that's just how it is, and so if you can't follow the instructions, the listing agent will not potentially might not trust you or think that you don't know how to follow basic instructions. So even though that kind of sucks, and I wish that, we should always have grace on the other person because we're all human and that, who cares? You should just laugh about it, but that does happen. So read this agent remarks. You can tell I'm speaking from experience, unfortunately, something I learned. And then also review the loan types. That's huge. Like if someone's coming in with, they're pre-approved for FHA and you take them and they fall in love with a house and then you find out it's not eligible for an FHA loan, that would really suck. That will also make you lose credibility with your clients. So, so that's really important to do. All right. So obviously some of these are kind of, basic. You account for how long you're going to be showing, account for travel, Google, doing the Google, all the different stops is really helpful. I like to bring a folder for them when you go on your first showing with them. You don't have to, but this is what is suggested. Get a folder. You can buy 1 million of them on Amazon, black or white ones. Add in the house hunting checklist, again, in the marketing center, and a pen so that you can take notes. And that just kind of adds that special touch for them. But again, that's optional. And also you might not be able to do it on the fly. You're just going to want if you really want to give white glove service, these are just kind of the details to keep in mind. So obviously, have your phone charged, because it would really suck if you're on a tour and your phone dies, you can't get in.
So something I like to do also is I like to review all the homes that we're going to look at and kind of know the basics off the top of my head. So it looks like I've done my homework, because I have done my homework. And that way you just kind of look like subject matter expert and that you care. So
yeah. If you are like me and you can't remember anything past 2 seconds, print it out and just carry it with you, and you're talking about it as you go. I literally can't. I could never do that. Yeah. So find what works for you. Or pulled up on your phone. So obviously leave a business card, leave things as you found it. And it's really great if you call or text listing agent for feedback, even if they don't want to offer on it. But either way, of course, if they do, whatever you can do to make that listing agent like you. So then,
do we have any questions, or does anybody have any input on any experiences that you've had, or any input that you think might help anybody else in the group?
Yeah, because I can do the second half of this later.
Yeah, we could totally do like the whole
conversation.
Make a part 2, but yeah, does anybody have any feedback or personal experiences?
Yeah, I have a couple. Well, I have one thing on the most recent thing you said about agent feedback. This could play into for EXP agents. This could play into some of our agent attraction too. How you interact with other agents that are outside of the brokerage. If you're just willing to communicate and give, basic feedback. Hey, my buyer says thank you for the showing, but yada yada yada, didn't work out. That at least sets you up for a possible, future communication with them.
That keeps the door open. Sure.
And also on the flip side, if you are the listing agent trying to get feedback for your seller, then it's nice to have people interact as well.
Yeah, totally. And even just sometimes it's just the right thing to do. I think of that lady that the agent that offered on military. I can't remember her name now. No, but another Roseburg agent. But anyways, I was the listing agent, and she called and she had questions, and she was asking. She was really overwhelmed. I could tell that she was not an experienced agent. And it was during our superhero photos that I got this call. And so I was asking her questions. I was being really nice, really polite. And, honestly, I've been the new agent making those calls, and I've had some listing agents that are assholes, and they treat you like crap. And that was such an awful feeling. Of course, so I was, of course, really kind to her, answering her questions. And it turns out she's calling on behalf of her clients. Her principal broker was gone on vacation, and her mentor wasn't picking up her phone. Not EXP, and they were there. I don't remember the brokerage. And so, man, how awful, that poor lady. And so I ended up mentoring her through the offer. Obviously I can't overstep, but I was like, yeah, that's what this means. That's what this line means. This is where you put that on this line, giving her advice and guidance. And she was so thankful. We ended up, working with each other and closing the deal. And it was her first offer. And she was like, you have helped me more than my mentor or my broker has ever helped me. Oh my gosh, wow. And, and I don't know if she'll come to, EXP or not, but I added her on Facebook, and I'll be a resource for her forever. And, just like doing that and, and if that agent ever did come to EXP, or Alex, like you're saying, like, if they were going to make a change, like they're going to know that you're someone that has helped them before, you were kind, you had grace, for them, and so that would be, that's amazing. So yeah, it's just the right thing to do overall, but in the long run, it's great to have those relationships with those agents. So yeah. Anybody else?
It costs $0 to be kind and to be a resource. So
yeah.
Cool.
All right. So does anyone else have any like experiences or like roadblocks they've had like with pre-approval or with showing homes, preparing for that at all?
I can share a recent experience with a cash buyer.
Yeah.
And it just to set, because I'm not as experienced, a very experienced agent either. I'm only a year in, so there's always things to learn, right? And I had a consultation, very much like you're laying it out here, and sometimes you're just gonna have to learn on the fly, or you're just gonna have to learn and kind of learn some lessons, right? There were certain questions that I thought I was asking, and I didn't ask if a certain question turned out that they wouldn't have qualified for the park approval when all was said and done. And that was just something that I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
But it was a manufactured park, a home in a manufactured home park, and it's just I guess my whole point to bring that up is that you got to be willing to take make some mistakes. But I was super stoked about having the appointment, being prepared. It felt good to show up. And even when you think you're all set and you're doing everything good, there's always, room for growth. So
yeah,
it's just something recent that happened to me.
And you learn from it. Like, now,
Yeah.
like if it's in a park and there's park rent, I'm going to, work with the lender.
Right, 3 times the rent. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And nothing makes you learn quicker and faster than making a big mistake. And, if you don't learn anything from it, then it was, it's for nothing. So
yeah,
you might as well take the best from that and grow from it. So
yeah. Yeah, I would say my most recent, super similar, in some ways to that. I was actually helping a buyer client, first time home buyer, pre-approved for kind of a, lower range for this particular market. 5 years ago, or when did we get married? 7 years ago, I guess. We bought a house for like half that price and it was great. So obviously just the market has changed. So, so she's pre-approved to take her, find the perfect house. We've done lots of showings, find the perfect house, and the market had slowed enough to where she wouldn't have to be competing. And so like I had pre-negotiated with the other agent. Yeah, they're going to accept it, write it up. Perfect. I start writing the offer, and that's when she the lender called her for, to touch base, and she realized what her monthly payment would be. And she's like, I can't afford that. Like, are you kidding me? I had no idea that it would be that amount. Like, that's not my realm. That's, like on the lender's side, but it was such a classic case of, dang, I could have it was in my power to make sure that, the basics had been gone over by the lender. Or if they had to talk to her and like maybe ask a few more questions to be sure that everything like that, just because something is not on you doesn't mean that we can't go the extra mile to make sure that nothing's missed as best we can. And so I should have maybe, to go the extra mile, I could have talked to the lender and been like, hey, like you went over like the monthly payment, right? Or to her, like, he told you the monthly payment for this, right? Approximately. And so it's just like a classic case of, I was for sure operating like great, like well, I was doing my, job, but there are things, and a lot of the things that I've written in this are just things to think about. So that way, it will, you know, because thankfully she's a close friend, so she knew it wasn't my realm. But a lot of buyers, they're overwhelmed. They don't know who's who and who's doing what. As far as they know, their agent's responsible for everything. And so just kind of a good reminder, like, next time I'm going to ask that question, but I didn't know. I've never run into that before. So kind of like what Alex said, like, well, I know now. So has anyone ever come across a situation like that where, you know, you've learned a different way to do something going forward?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I had that buyer who ghosted me twice, right?
Yeah.
You know, I think in the beginning, if I had reiterated some of the expectations, even though we went over them,
Mm-hmm.
you know, especially after the first time, then maybe it would not have gone south like that. But
Mm-hmm.
live and learn, and I know going forward, like, you know, that this guide, the roadmap, all of that's really good. And then, you know, present that. And then just every time you see him, say, hey, you know what, if we're wanting to do this today, this is what we got to do.
Mm-hmm.
Communicate on both sides, blah, blah, blah. So,
Yeah.
you know, it was a good first lesson
Mhm.
of mine. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, like we have recently found out with some of our clients, like as we go and as we perfect the process, just finding out if we over communicate and check in pretty much every day, even if nothing new has happened in the transaction, that will, like, it reduces their stress so much. And so I don't think we really realized that till the last few months when we were communicating with all that we needed to. Like sometimes there's a week or two that nothing new has happened. So, you know, before we were just letting, like, it's fine. They know that we'll reach out to them next time we need to. And we had a few people say, we feel out of the loop. We feel like you're not communicating very well. We don't know what's going on, even though we know everything's good. And so realizing, okay, we need to be really checking in with them every day. Everything's good. Everything's smooth. We're here if you have any questions. The attitude of our clients changed very dramatically. And so we're going to do that forever now. But yeah, it's one of those things, like just going the extra mile, like it means the world to them, makes you that much better of an agent.
It's better to be, it's better to over communicate than under communicate, even if there's nothing to communicate.
Yeah.
That way they just know that you're there. And
And like what Sean says, that's where you can kind of implement those little reminders. Those things are very important that you want to click with them, you know, throwing that in there is like perfect time. But yeah. So, all right. Well, then we can talk about like actually writing the offer, during the transactions, negotiating, inspection. This actually might be like a 3-part Dauntless, really. So, the writing the offer, negotiations, and the inspection, those are all pretty important and detailed. And I would love to hear feedback from all of you. So yeah, so we'll go over that next week.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you guys. Nice to see you all.
Good to see
Thanks,
you too.
guys. Nice meeting
Next
everybody.
week.
Ah.